This morning, I'm going to be talking about the process of change. It's a very interesting lecture. I totally enjoyed putting it together. And a couple of things about it. First, so much of this process of change appears to be invisible. Yet, ultimately, you're going to actually observe changes as a result of your striving in your physical, etheric, emotional, and mental bodies, even your spiritual bodies. So, if you're a real concrete-minded thinker, just relax a little bit with some of these ideas and realize that there's a whole movement that is scientifically taking place in your physical and etheric bodies as you strive on the path. If you're not striving, if you're not working on yourself, then none of this is going to happen. But if you meditate every day, if you're striving, if you're working, if you're undergoing the process of changing yourself, you're going to realize the effect of your work, the effect of your labor is actually not only changing your consciousness, which is an important part of this process of change, but the reason the consciousness is changing is because your atomic structure is also changing, literally changing. So that's one thing to remember as you're listening to my sharings this morning. The other is through strange things going on with the office copy machine. It got jammed when I was making a diagram, so I ran over to Staples and they said it would take 8 hours before they could get to my project. So then I went over to Office Depot and it took them 3 minutes to run off a diagram, which I had to jerry-rig a little bit. And then I sent it to Terry, who now put it on the laptop computer for the webinar. But meanwhile, because I didn't want to put up the screen this morning because it takes up so much space, I just handed out the diagram for you. And you're going to recognize this is a diagram you're used to, except for a few points where I just threw in the astral and physical plane. Just like that, right? And please make a note of the little squares where it has planetary logos, physical body, and planetary logos, etheric body. Notice that the planetary logos physical body corresponds to the mental body, which is where the Roman numeral 5 is, or the mental plane. And then the physical, the planetary logos etheric body corresponds to where it has Roman numeral 4 and the intuitional body. Okay, so when we get to that point, you'll be able to quickly look at the diagram and see, where it is. And to me, it's interesting to me, I know that diagrams like this are much like astrological horoscopes. To me, when I look at a diagram like this, and maybe some of you are the same way, or you look at the chart, I'm not looking at a one-dimensional, black and white something or other written, with ink. It comes alive. So when I look at this diagram, my mind is flooded with information and energy and color and ideas. Just the way when I look at a horoscope, it's the same thing. It's no longer a static object, it's moving and it's alive and it's living, and it's communicating with us. So I hope that you have the same sense with our remote audience that's on the webinar this morning. And Charles is going to put the diagram up a couple of times during the talk so you can see it. That you're not just reading it with your concrete mind, but you're feeling it, and that it's kind of communicating with you. Okay? Okay. Now let's get started. Changing ourselves in times of change. I'm going to be talking this morning about the esoteric science of how we can truly change ourselves and the effect that changing ourselves has upon our whole human constitution. I recall a comment that my first and most impacting astrological teacher commented about in great frustration. He felt very strongly after many years of teaching and counseling that it was not possible for people to change. He was very depressed. He had many students and clients and had worked with them for several years. And yet, even though he was trying to help them change their lives and to improve their lives by using astrology.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an attendee.
Sorry, we're having electronic problems, right? They're laughing hysterically back there. I'm not. Anyway, my teacher became so depressed that he decided to quit counseling and teaching, and he turned over his practice to me. And I began, teaching astrology, which I did for many years. Now I wish I could contact him and tell him not to give up on helping others to change, and that the teaching gives specific ways to bring about a change in one's consciousness. This morning I'm going to talk about the process of change, first through transmutation, then through transfiguration, and then if we have time, I wanted to relate how this process of change it ties in also with inspiration and aspiration, the energy of inspiration and the result being aspiration. So we'll see if I can get to that. We can say that transmutation is the refining, it's the process of the refining of energies in your lower centers. So this is important to remember. Why? Because as you are engaged in the studies of the human constitution, then you're going to understand the subtleties, the deeper levels that are given to us through the writings, of the teaching. Also, as your body changes, in the process of your consciousness is changing, now you're going to understand. You're going to understand that the first major change that occurs as a result of your inspiration, your aspiration, your striving, and especially meditation, is that these lower centers are refining themselves. Refinement means that you are going to be drawing in new atoms into your glands and organs, so you can expect changes to be taking place with your physical etheric body. This refining process builds new and more advanced cells. So when we read the word advancing in the teaching, now that word should mean something more significantly to you. When we say humanity is advancing, when the teaching says humanity is advancing, the teaching is telling us that humanity, through its striving, is refining the lower centers in their own individual physical body, physical etheric body, But because of the masses doing this and the atomic process taking place, attracting more advanced atoms, means that humanity is advancing. So it's not, how can I say this? Humanity tends to think advancement means I've got a better job. I'm now in a management position. Now I'm in upper management. Look at how I'm advancing. Look at how big and puffy my bank account is getting. That's how I'm advancing, but that's not what advancing means in the teaching. It has nothing to do with our jobs and our puffy bank accounts. And it's an interesting idea, puffy bank account. As if the bank doesn't immediately take it out of our account anyway. Okay. In transmutation, we might find our faces changing, even our eyes changing. The way we walk will change. We will become more refined. See, the way we walk, our behavior will change, and so on. The energies that are coming from higher realms into our lower ethers begin to transform the shapes and forms of our centers. And why is that, you ask? Because they are evoking more of the archetype. And we've studied a lot about the archetype, and I've shared it in the Sunday talk, so I'm not going to get into that. But it is bringing forth more of the potential we have been promised in that archetype. Transmutation leads us to the first major expansion of consciousness, in which our physical body and life force begins to come more under the control of our human soul. So, transmutation, refinement of the lower centers, exchanging those lower atoms for more advancing atoms, and now putting our physical body and the forces of the physical body more under the control of our human soul. Okay, so this is the process called transmutation. What is transfiguration? The transfiguration process is different. When conditions change on that level, on the level of transfiguration, the higher cosmic ethers replace your lower ethers. The higher cosmic ethers are replacing the lower ethers. The atoms, and I've mentioned this in the last few talks, I don't know if you're going to get it or not. The atoms of your lower ethers, then what? You know what they do? Anybody? Valerie, I know you know. They enter into your physical body. The atoms of your lower ethers then enter into your physical body and become assimilated into the physical body. This is how your physical body becomes more ethereal. First, your body becomes very sensitive to light. Now, let me reiterate this, that this is the process of transfiguration, which is also known as a third initiation, right? Okay. Your body becomes very sensitive to light, to sound, and to fragrance, and so on. Eventually, your body becomes ethereal. Now, in the fifth initiation, it's in the fifth initiation, so you've gone through the third, through the fourth, and now you're into the fifth. This is our future, distant future most likely. Our physical body is now totally ethereal. So we're talking about the level of a master now, right? Okay. The physical body is totally ethereal. ethereal, although we can condense it, which is sometimes called the densified astral body, so that it can appear physical. At this stage of transfiguration, we have become a masterpiece. You can manifest your etheric body so that it appears physical. So that it appears physical. Or you can keep it ethereal and appear in different places on the planet at the same time. For example, when a disciple sees his or her master, this is what happens. The master manifests him or herself in such a way that the disciple can meet him in person. Other times he remains in the etheric, and this is more to the experience that, can I say, the majority has? The majority of advancing disciples have. Now you see how that word advancing, now your consciousness hears that word very differently? Okay, good. So the master can manifest his body so that the disciples can either meet him in person or he will remain etheric so he can communicate with you through his etheric body. So those are the two processes. In Agni Yoga, as I mentioned, this is called a visibility of spirit. It means that this advanced soul can be anywhere and everywhere. Sometimes people can witness the presence of a spirit in various locations, and spirit in this case is master. So if you're listening to my or reading my blog, some of this will seem familiar to you, right? Such a person is highly developed and able to contact simultaneously with various people in various locations. For example, on Master's Day, we can imagine Master M can contact or is able to be seen in various groups at the same time. And it doesn't have to be just MM, it can be Master KH as well. Maybe another Hilarion is potential. He can even be in different planes, serving and teaching on different levels to meet the various needs of people. If you have your astral body built, he can communicate with you in your astral body. This means you're going to meet with the master in your astral body. If you have built your mental body or your Buddhic body, he will communicate with you and teach you at that level. But you must strive to truly construct these bodies. In the Symphony of the Zodiac that we are told, only 30% of humanity has built the astral body. Only 30% of humanity, and only 10% of that 30% uses it correctly. And then even more depressing, that only 15% of humanity has built and uses his mental body. And then even a little bit more depressing, is she okay? Only 1 in a billion, only 1 in a billion has the intuitional body built. So we must change these statistics. Okay, and changing these statistics will not happen at work, in our day-to-day job. It's just not going to happen there. This is why we need to undergo the process of change, for we are on the path of self-mastery, which means we are going to enter the lightning path and undertake this process of change. We don't want to remain anchored to the earth and enslaved in matter. We want to undergo transmutation and transformation. So, with my blog, the focus of this blog is, as you know, we're focusing on living the transformational life. So transformation is that midway point between transmutation and transfiguration. So living the transformational life brings into transmutation and transfiguration. So I'm just throwing out a little hint so you can see the process. We want to undergo the transmutation and transfiguration process so that we can consciously be in communication with the supermundane and engage in service through the plan of hierarchy. So, transfiguration causes the atoms of our lower centers, or lower ethers, excuse me, it's not the centers, it's the ethers. The atoms of our lower ethers to enter into our physical body, so we become more and more ethereal. In transfiguration, the lower etheric atoms are replaced and assimilated by the body. This is how the transfiguration of the body occurs. Now, you might want to look at your diagram. Briefly look at your diagram. We have 4 cosmic ethers, as stated in the diagram, which are beyond the contact of our consciousness. That 1 billion, that 15%, that 30%. Those are the only ones that are in contact, that 1 billion person, 1 billionth. Okay, I know. The 4 cosmic ethers are called from bottom to the top of the diagram. It starts at the bottom, is the 4th. See where that Roman numeral 4 is? Okay, is the Buddhic cosmic. It's the lowest cosmic ether is the Buddhic. The next cosmic ether is the Atmic. The next up is monadic, and then divine, which is also called the ADI plane. So we have the 4th cosmic ether, the 3rd cosmic ether, the 2nd cosmic ether, and the 1st cosmic ether. The other ethers are considered the lower ethers. The lowest cosmic ether is the 4th cosmic ether and is called Buddhic. The 3rd cosmic ether is the Atmic, the 2nd cosmic ether is monadic, and the 1st cosmic ether is the divine plane. I'm repeating myself so that we can assimilate, what's being said here. Now, how does this, okay, we can put the diagrams down now. How does this exchange of energy from the higher to the lower take place? These higher cosmic ethers come in and fuse with our etheric body. The higher cosmic ethers come in and fuse with our lower etheric body and eventually replace it. When this happens, we become conscious of them. Our consciousness and awareness fuse with each other. We become aware of both the higher cosmic planes. Now listen to this carefully. This is why we want to walk this transformational path, why we want to live a life of transformation, so that eventually our consciousness and awareness fuse with each other and we become aware of both the higher cosmic planes and the lower personality fields simultaneously. Now, in the process of this happening, it is like shifting gears of the car. Remember the old cars when you had all those 4 gears, sometimes 5 gears? I remember my little Opel car that the kids and I would speed around town in. That was so funny. It's Opel GT. Anyway, it had 5 gears. Drove me crazy. But it's like that. It's like we learn over time how to shift these gears where our vehicle is not jerking and jerking and jerking. Our clutch is always, okay, depressed, okay. So why remain stuck in our physical body? Our physical body consciousness when we have so much ahead of us to experience. It is time to undergo this process of change. The path of discipleship is an ascent to the mountaintop. We can't get to the mountaintop in our dense physical body. We just can't do it. It's chained to our irritations, our anger, our hatred and desires, our money and cars and houses and relationships. These things keep us so distracted, so much in darkness, that they serve us like a vampire. These things drain our psychic energy and we cannot ascend to the mountaintop. It is through the process of transfiguration that the master, whose consciousness and awareness is one, can immediately know about the higher and lower worlds. So when I talk about ascending to the top of the mountain, I am talking about contacting and communicating with the supermundane worlds. Okay, so let's say that we have 2% of the intuitional substance in our etheric body. This means that we are 2% intuitive. If we have 75% of the intuitional substance in our etheric body, this means that we are 75% intuitional. So what is intuition? It is awareness without logic or reasoning. What happens with humanity, what happens with us, is that when we are in the presence of someone who has even 2% intuition, we don't get it because our concrete mind is weighing this and weighing that based on our experiences and our knowledge and our academic, reading and so forth. And then, we begin to argue. And this is what takes a long time to even manifest an idea of that 2% person. To manifest an idea into physical form, because it takes committees upon committees upon committees to decide whether they're going to incorporate that intuitive idea into the now. So imagine taking the president of a country who might be 2% intuitive. By the time it trickles down to the last committee, that whole intuitive idea is now so distorted and disrupted that there's just the seed of the idea, is in operation. Okay, let's go back to the diagram. Charles. Thank you. Intuition is the etheric body of the planetary logos. That Buddhic plane, that intuitive plane of consciousness is where the etheric body of the planetary logos is. This means that the fourth cosmic ether, see in the diagram, hopefully this is a good visual image, that this fourth cosmic ether is the physical etheric body of the planetary logos. This means that our intuition is the same substance as that from the physical etheric body of the planetary logos. So if you have 5% intuitional substance, you are 5% of the body of the planetary logos. Or 2%, or 1%, or 0. But let me make one more point. The lowest aspect of the planetary logos, the physical body is built more of mental substance. So there's where our hope is, that the physical body of the planetary logos is primarily made of the substance of the mental plane, the higher mental plane. This is why when your consciousness, when your human soul reaches the higher mental planes, you get closer to his real physical body. And when you enter into the intuitional plane, you live, move, and have your being in his etheric body. Okay, that's enough of the diagram. Okay. In the near future, people will be able to measure the etheric body and tell us whether or not it contains intuitional substance. Clairvoyance, true clairvoyance, can see it. In Letters on Occult Meditation, the Tibetan master DK says that in future universities, 2 clairvoyants will receive students at the door and determine what degree initiate they are, and then escort them to the classes where they belong. It will not be a matter of knowledge, but of how much intuitional substance is replacing the matter in your etheric body. So I think I have about maybe 4 or 5 minutes where I can talk to us about inspiration and aspiration. Because these are, inspiration and aspiration, we could say, are the mechanisms by which we can cause changes to the substance of our constitution, our human constitution, of what I've been talking about. Aspiration is the mechanism by which we can cause changes in our substance. So if we're not aspiring to something great, then we're not going to change. If we are wallowing in depression and anger and disappointment and irritation and malice and criticism and so forth, there's, even if that higher energy of inspiration hits our consciousness, it will manifest not as aspiration, but as increasing irritation, increasing criticism, increasing malice, increasing depression and this and that. But aspiration, the substance of aspiration comes. It is a substance, and it pushes out matter. It pushes out matter. And eventually this evicted etheric matter becomes atoms and cells in our physical body. In this way, it begins its evolution by becoming a body cell. For example, an etheric atom enters into your physical body and becomes an advanced cell, right? Okay. It then starts to progress into the astral, mental, and higher bodies. When this atom succeeds in becoming a part of the intuitional plane, it will sacrifice itself by pushing lower atoms out and taking over, so the human consciousness will have access to what? Planetary, solar, and galactic realms. Great ones like Christ and the Lord Buddha have access to all the computers in the universe, to all the centers of information, like materia lucida that we read about in the Agni Yoga books. Because these advancing consciousnesses have an instrument that was created through aspiration. Aspiration is the drive through which we begin to step into the next level of our evolution. Aspiration is the response to inspiration. Aspiration is the response to inspiration. It is a call, an energy which comes to us from a higher source to invite us to work on a higher level, or to do some labor that we were not ready to do in the past, but we are now capable of doing. With inspiration comes the knowledge, the challenge, and the energy to succeed. And the soul responds by saying, Lord, I am ready now. I want to do it. Okay. I really don't want to stop here. There's just a little bit more information, so hang in there, okay. As inspiration is assimilated in our body, aspiration then increases proportionately, and eventually inspiration and aspiration come together and build one channel of energy that flows in both directions. They come together and then they flow in both directions. It elevates us. The energy comes down and then circulates back up. And actually, it's more of a spiral. Okay. This is exactly how the replacement of lower ethers with the higher ethers occurs. The first source of inspiration is your solar angel. It is a beam of energy which carries the intention, the direction, the purpose, the plan of the source of inspiration to you. The second source of inspiration is the master. And your master never interferes until you hear your solar angel. This is what is wrong with mediums. They bypass the solar angel and fall into the traps of various entities. Inspiration also comes to us from the ashrams. When an ashram is inspiring us, now this is an ashram of hierarchy. This is not a physical plane ashram necessarily. It comes from higher. So we could say capital A, okay, ashram. When an ashram is inspiring us, it is interested in our specialization, because ashrams are divided into 7 specialized rays. They are now interested in making us a politician, an educator, an artist, a scientist, a philosopher, a religious leader, or even a financial leader. Now listen to this carefully. The master prepares you to join an ashram. The master prepares you to join an ashram. A part of the wisdom of the ashram takes over then and inspires you. Then you are inspired by hierarchical inspiration, global responsibilities, higher and higher. The Tibetan says this is Shambhala. There is Shambhala, which is very rare to be inspired by Shambhala. Only those such as Christ and Moses and Buddha and Krishna can carry that energy. That is why Master Morya's ashram has only a few people in it. Aspiration is our response to inspiration. Aspiration is our response to a pure ray of inspiration. Your field of service will grow and grow because inspiration is energy. Energy will energize you. Profound, right? And you will make the field of your influence larger and larger. A disciple, and I'm closing with this, a disciple's inspiration is equal to the extension of the field in which he or she serves. A disciple's achievement or the degree of discipleship is equal to the dimension or field in which he or she serves. The larger the field, the greater is the inspiration. The field is not only horizontal, but also vertical. And this is called the process of change.